Okay, now that we have a few materials applied and the colors of the house are no longer offensive, it's time to start on two of the most important things early on. And that is, we want to build all the surroundings or the earth around this house. And right now that may or may not include trees. It needs to eventually, and it needs to pretty soon. But first, we just want to shape the earth. We want to decide, is the earth going to be flat for us, or are we going to have a little bit of topography? Do we plan to use the topo solid that we brought in, or do we want to try to shape the earth right here within twin motion? Okay, that's the first thing. And then the second thing would be, what's my camera angle going to be for any kind of rendering that I do? Because the last thing you want is to build out this vast environment. You can see how big it is, but you don't want to overbuild it, right? You don't want to build it out in a way such that your renderings don't even show it. So pretty early on here, we got to set up a camera. And I think that will be actually in the next video after this one. So for this one right now, let's start to decide, do we want a flat earth or do we want topo? If you just want a flat earth, again, you could turn this off. You can just select it and turn it off. And one reason why you might not want to turn it off is it's really nice in Revit to just go put something in for like a driveway or roads. That would mean, yeah, maybe it's better that you just leave this on. It can still be flat. The topo solids from Revit can be flat too. And this can be done as either a subdivided topo solid or just as a floor, however you want to do that. But anyways, it's a decision you got to make. Do I want my earth to be flat? Do I want it to be topo? If it's going to be flat, I'm going to use the topo solid, or am I going to simply, let's collapse this, turn off this piece. Whoops, I think I did that all backwards. Okay, or am I going to simply use the flat earth that's already here within twin motion? And just so that you know, this flat earth cannot be changed from being flat. The material can change. It's a strange tile right now. It doesn't look like it's anything natural. We can fix that. But you can't make it anything but flat. And if you look here off in the distance, you can see there are some hills back there that aren't flat. And that's your starting landscape. So the ground is this. You're looking at sky when you turn that off, just empty sky. And the landscape, that's the hills way off in the distance. Okay, and if you like either one of these, then simply go right back into materials. And you got some good options under vegetation. You can find, let me back up actually, under materials. There are some good things in vegetation too, but that's not where I want to go just yet. You can find something like ground and nature, and you've got these grasses, and they're just two-dimensional grasses. Be careful with the 3D grass. This is way too big for 3D grass. It's not necessary to put a 3D grass on it. But there we go. Now we've got, everything looks green. It looks kind of weird and tiled, right? And if we go into our properties, and we go to the scaling under the UV category, we can kind of fix that. It's still, even after being enlarged, it's still going to look like it's a little bit tiled. And so I'll go back to the main category here, and I'll change the grunge. And the grunge just adds in like random patterns, and that's really going to help to make that feel less repetitious and a little more natural. Okay, it's okay, right? It still doesn't look like perfect or fantastic, and don't worry, there's more strategies coming, but it's okay. And then again, remember, if you were going to do this, you would need to drop the house because I can see all my foundation. So that's one option. I'm going to actually turn my ground plane back on, and I've got myself into a bit of a predicament here. I turned it off, and it's somewhere inside of here and in that great big list. So if I type in topo solid, you can use this search. If you know what something is by name, it's really helpful, and that brings it up. Here's my topo solid. We can turn that on, and look at this. We can apply the same material here. So it should look, a little bit more like these two were the same thing, but you can see that strangely, and I don't even know what to do about this. I don't know why that happened, but strangely, the scale is going to be different on this one. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Well, did I bring in two grasses? Maybe I did. Let's try this one. Okay, I guess I did. That's okay. Here's what happened. I first applied a grass to the ground in the background, and I changed it. And so that was this material right here that I changed. And then when I came here and I applied this one again, there you can see it's a duplicate and it went back to the original scale. So watch out for that. I don't need this one in here. I'm just going to delete that. But once you make a change, it's almost as though it becomes a brand new material separate from the one that's over here that's not in your project. So I'm glad I made that mistake. Okay, so look at this. These two, they start to feel like they are one almost, except for these strange edges over here that I've already shown. Okay, and eventually I'm going to put blades of grass in here in the foreground. So don't worry yet about the fact that it still doesn't look perfectly natural or realistic. We'll work on that. Okay, so again, here's a good option. I could keep going there, but there's something really cool that I got to show you for those that want to do some earth sculpting or earth shaping. Okay, and in order to do that, we're going to go back to, I'm going to cancel this topo search so that I can see my scene graph again. I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to turn off the starting ground. I'll leave the landscape on in the background for now. And we're going to go to the library and then vegetation, landscapes, and pick one of these two. One more time, you can still make it flat from this option, or you can do a rocky grassland, which comes in with a little bit of highs and lows. And either way, you can shape it. So it doesn't matter. If you start off with the flat, it doesn't have to remain flat. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it in. You'll have to wait a minute as it loads, and it just came in, and there it is. It has its own grass that was already applied to it. I don't know if we would find it here in our materials. It doesn't look like I would. So you can either try to replicate that grass by going back to your library materials and where were we with that ground? You know, you can either try to find whichever one already looks like that, or you can take the one that you've already been modifying and you can apply it here and here. I don't want to do that because I actually really like this one. It looks better than the one that I made already. So I'm thinking, you know, I kind of want to try again and make this one look more like that than vice versa. But at any rate, we have a great big flat terrain again, but we have more potential to do things with it and to customize it. And let me show you how that works. Let's close down this material so you can actually see what we're doing here. I think for now I'll close down my scene. I think I need my properties open, and I'll close down my library because I don't think I need to see any objects or materials right now. Okay, go ahead and select this flat terrain, and you can see that under properties you've got the option to either sculpt or paint it. Now, if you left your scene on, it's going to look like this, but you'll still have access to these buttons. Okay, I just want it off right now so I get the full menu. Okay, sculpt and paint. So if I'm sculpting, then I choose up, down, zigzag, smooth. Sorry, I don't know what these are. They make it, they give you topography. We'll just put it that way. This one is erode, and then this one I use quite a bit, flatten. Okay, but the first two and the last one, those are the ones that I use the most. Okay, so watch what this does. Let's come out here. And by the way, remember, you can push the numbers on your keyboard, 4, 5, and 6, to move faster, because I'm kind of going slow right now. So let's push number 5. Well, I was going really fast for a second there. That's because I pushed 6, but 5 is better. Okay. Anyways, I'm looking out here. I'm going to change the diameter to be something bigger. And the intensity, I'm really going to keep it low because this tool can make big changes in a hurry. Whoops, I thought I was on the raise tool. I was on the drop tool. Okay, and let's back up. And what I'm trying to do is pull this up to get rid of the edges on my topo solid. And even though that's what I'm trying to do right now, that's not like the only way that you would use this tool. There are lots of ways you can use this tool. You know, you can say, I want a big mountain over here, and I'm going to raise that all up. Back to where I'm at here, though. I'm just trying to raise this the best I can at the edges to make these two feel a little more seamless, and it just really gets away from you quickly, right? You saw that it's going up higher than I probably wanted or anticipated that it would, and you can always drop it back down. That works okay. I think the flatten tool works a little bit better, and in this case, unfortunately, flatten is making it think it all needs to come up. So let's go ahead and drop this down. Drop, and then we'll do the flatten. And that just tries to make everything a little bit more level. Okay. And really adjust and experiment with diameter and intensity. Just because the simple fact that these are not easy to use means that, you know, your first attempt is probably not going to be the best one. There we go. That's looking pretty good through there. And if I wasn't so stubborn and I would just apply the same material to both of these, they might look a little more seamless. Here, I'll pause really quick and see if I can create a better grass than what I've got right here. All right, grass 1 really did it. Grass 1 is like the same color as that great big terrain. So if you want to do something like that, that's the ticket right there. And I did have to adjust the grunge quite a bit too. I could probably turn that down actually. Anyways, these two are starting to look like they're one and the same, other than that little edge that I still need to get rid of. And this could be done, like I said, in many ways, where either I'm going to try to merge them, or maybe I just turn off, go back to my scene here, maybe I do just turn off the topo completely. And if you're really good with being patient, you can take those sculpting tools and you can try to create what was there from my topo solid, which was that it's high over here and lower over here. And it can be done. I personally find it kind of hard to do, but it certainly can be done with enough patience and with enough effort. So that's not my choice, but I just want to show that it could be done. And I want to remind you one more time that in order to sculpt or to come back to this, you just at any point select this earth region, and under properties, the sculpt tool is just going to show up. Okay, and we wouldn't do justice here to show this without also showing what the paint tool can do. And this is really a great tool that is only applicable on top of our flat grassland here. Or if you had chosen the other one, the rocky grassland, it would be applicable there too. But if you still have in your scene, if you're still using that starting ground, which mine is too low now, it looks like it's disappeared, but if you're still using that starting ground, you cannot do any of the sculpting and you cannot do any of the painting that I'm about to show you. So be aware of that. Okay, so I'm going to select this again, go back to properties. Okay, the painting says that you can have up to 4 materials that cover this great big flat land. And the one that's already obvious is the grass. Okay, but if I want to paint with something else, such as some of this dirt, whatever that is, it says, I don't know, it's abbreviated, but it looks like dirt. You can apply that, and the paint has a few settings here so that you can change how big the shape is that you're painting with, or the diameter of it, and also the opacity. And the opacity is kind of nice when you don't want a perfect edge. So right now I'm getting a pretty good clean edge, but if I turn down that opacity, you can see that I'm going to click several, let's turn it up a little bit, it's going too slow, but I'm going to click several times and it just barely kind of fades in over what material used to be there. And they both have their places. Both can be excellent, actually, depending on what you need. This is a good way to do roads if you're not going to do a driveway like the one that I have here, because that one's been modeled, so you get perfect edges. On this one here, they won't be quite as perfect edges, but you can find a material that you would like to use as a road. Here, let's turn that opacity back up. That one is not a good road, is it? But by finding one, here's what I mean. If I go back to my library and my materials, and let's say that I find some ground materials and man-made, I'm going to find asphalt and concrete and those types of things. And so you could try to make a road out of this, but you only have 4 materials to work with over here. So if you're going to bring asphalt over, it has to replace one of them. So I'll replace the gravel, and you can see that wherever I had painted the gravel, it's now replaced by asphalt. And if I want to add any more asphalt, I can do that. Okay, just like so. So there you go. Have fun with those tools, because they really are kind of enjoyable and fun to explore and try out. You do have over here a few additional shapes, which can be helpful when you want it to look a little more sporadic at the transition point. You know, that's what these ones are for. It would be really nice if they had a square, but they don't have a square. And I don't know of any way to load one, but if you figure that out, then I certainly do want to know. Okay, and at this point, it's a good idea to come in here and maybe start adding a few trees and a few bushes just around the house. As part of this, you know, earth shaping and everything, we want to kind of get the scene more complete and a little more set up. But again, only do that right next to the house, so that by the time you watch my next video, which shows you how to set up a camera view, you won't have gone overboard, or you won't have gone too far. And that does conclude this video, but I don't want you to think that we've done all that we can for covering the ground here with grass. We still haven't gotten into 3D grasses. And so that's something that certainly will show up in an upcoming video.